This video is now in session, and the future of New York City is at stake at the 2021 election. Maybe now more than ever, with a pandemic that has ruined New York City and tested it to its core. And now, with New York City starting to rebound, with certain places starting to go back in business, the future of New York is now on the line with different types of perspectives who want to take over as New York City mayor and replace Bill de Blasio. Bill de Blasio currently is the incumbent mayor, and he is a progressive. So there are four frontrunners in this election. There are Eric Adams, Andrew Yang, Kathryn Garcia, and Maya Wiley. So all four of these individuals have different perspectives on what they believe the future of New York should be, and they also have political equivalents among the Democratic platform, which makes it easier to determine their views. For Eric Adams, the first thing that he emphasized was stopping crime. Crime has risen in New York City, and he wants to be able to suppress that crime and use his credentials as a former NYPD captain in order to ensure that the police can properly enforce the city. Meanwhile, most other candidates, they're also in support of the NYPD and as well as law enforcement with law and order. And even for the progressive candidates, many of them do support it, with the exception of Dianne Morales, who is the only candidate who said that she would defund the police. Every other candidate said otherwise, which shows that the progressive movement nationwide is most likely not that popular among a lot of people, especially the defund the police movement and maybe a few others. And that should be a note for progressives in other cities, because trying to campaign on an action to defund the police is not really a good time to do so when crime is rising nationwide in a lot of our cities. The other thing that Eric Adams wants to do is he wants to rebound the economy of New York like all other candidates, but the way he wants to do it is to have New York go back to its former glory around the 2005 to 2000 before like the 2008 recession hit, and potentially also doing like the 2015 to 2020 era. And he wants to bring back those kinds of jobs into New York. So those are his economic and his crime outlooks. In terms of public housing, he doesn't want to revitalize what happened with the projects and the affordable housing initiatives that were started under previous administrations. Instead, what he wants to do is he does want to make affordable housing, but he wants to make it in good places, not in low income poverty stricken neighborhoods. So those are Eric Adams' three main goals. For Andrew Yang, he wants to make the city fun. He wants to be the cheerleader of the city, and he wants to take a new direction for New York City. Currently speaking, New York City is dominated by a lot of financial and tech companies, but Andrew Yang is looking to make New York City more of an entrepreneurial city where people can start their small business and can thrive in New York City. And that's not surprising because his credentials, he was the founder of Venture for America, which was aiming to help entrepreneurial companies. So it's not surprising that he wants to spread that sentiment across New York City, and as a result, those are his main outlooks and for New York City in the future. He believes that the future of New York should rely on small businesses rather than the businesses of before. For Maya Wiley, she wants to bring a new perspective of New York as well, but she wants to bring a progressive perspective, bring in more welfare for the poverty, for those who are in poverty in New York City, and she also wants to she also wants to tax the rich and create congestion pricing in New York immediately, like most other candidates. With the issue of congestion pricing, actually, and if you don't know, for context, congestion pricing is if you go into like a section of New York, then you will be priced as long as you drive a vehicle. So if you drive a vehicle, let's just say to the south of Columbus Circle or 59th Street, then you will be taxed a few bucks in order to relieve congestion in midtown and downtown New York. So that's congestion pricing. All candidates support implementing congestion pricing immediately, with the exception of Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang believes that congestion pricing should happen, but not quite immediately, so that businesses who rely on truck shipments to come to their businesses can have a little bit of leeway so that they can recover and then pay the congestion pricing. For Maya Wiley, she also wants to make the city more equal for minorities in comparison to white individuals. So she is in support of implementing benefits for Black Americans in order for them to thrive in the same way that white Americans do in New York City. For Kathryn Garcia, the final candidate, she represents the kind of mainstream Democratic platform. So anything that you could think of, like something similar to, I guess, Cory Booker level of Democratic policies, or even maybe Joe Biden kind of policies, at least Joe Biden in his presidency. And her policies, she wants to make New York City cleaner, which again is not a surprise because she was a former commissioner of the New York City Department of Sanitation. But she also wants to make the city, she also wants to revitalize the boroughs around Manhattan, so Brooklyn, and as well as Queens and the Bronx, and making again those boroughs of New York City cleaner. Now, there is a New York Times article that highlights all of this. You can see here what we learned from interviewing the New York City mayoral candidates, and this was in their interview process to figure out which candidate they wanted to endorse, and they ultimately endorsed Kathryn Garcia, as you can see right here. But there were a total of 8 different candidates that they interviewed: Eric Adams, Sean Donovan, Kathryn Garcia, Raymond McGuire, Diane Morales, Scott Stringer, Maya Wiley, and Andrew Yang. So the top 8 candidates, they all interviewed them for the New York City mayoral endorsement. And because the New York City editorial board endorsed Kathryn Garcia, she skyrocketed in the polls, and now she's considered to be around, she's considered to be part of the top 4. So you can see here the top 4: Eric Adams, Andrew Yang, and then, Andrew Yang's right here. Eric Adams is right here. Eric Adams is right here. And then the purple one is Andrew Yang. The gray one is other, or undecided. So then the red one is Kathryn Garcia, and then the pink one is Maya Wiley. So you can see that all these 4 candidates are in the top. So Eric Adams is first, Maya Wiley second, Andrew Yang third, and finally Kathryn Garcia at 4th. Now, this is only based on Emerson College, only based on Emerson College, that final ranking there. So it's not really quite indicative, and we shouldn't really be relying on polls. But that's the overall state of the race so far, considering we don't really have many other metrics to go off of in the New York City mayoral election. So those are the 4 thoughts that the 4 candidates have. And if we were to give an analogy for each of the candidates, like pairing up each candidate with a Democratic presidential candidate, the Democratic presidential primary, someone from there, then Eric Adams would be similar to Joe Biden before his presidency, or even maybe Steve Bullock. Andrew Yang is Andrew Yang. No, I'm just kidding. Andrew Yang is he would also be somewhat similar to those 2 candidates. Why is that there? Okay. And finally, we have, and then Kathryn Garcia is somewhat like Kamala Harris in the presidential campaign. And then Maya Wiley is like Bernie Sanders. Or you could say Elizabeth Warren. So that's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed this. And this video is now adjourned, and I'll see you in the next one.